Okay, so we're broadcasting now, and we're in recording mode. So anything you say now will be held against you in a court of whatever, court of public opinion, probably. So, hi guys, thank you very much for coming into another Majestic webinar for old guard, new blood. We've got another diverse crowd again today, but everybody has been in the industry for a fair amount of time. I'm going to put Iman on the young side, and then and Judith has been around forever, and Mike came in somewhere in the middle over the last 20 years. But the fight today is between the concept of big SEO, enterprise level SEO, and small or SME SEO, and I want to explore a little bit the differences between approaches for individuals, approaches for organizations, what's different in those kind of approaches, and what's the same. And I think the group I've got is incredibly well suited for this. So I'm going to let Judith, Mike, and Iman introduce themselves. Judith, do you want to start?
Okay, sure. I'm Judith Lewis. You can use the search engine of your choice to really dig about what's out there on me. And yes, that article about the chocoholic cybersex pioneer is about me. I've been around for, I guess, 23, 24 years now, but I got online in the 80s, mid 80s. So I've been online for more than half my life and longer than some of you have been alive, I'm sure. That just makes me feel so old, because I am. I have my own consultancy. It's called DeCabbit Consulting, DeCabbit Consultancy, I should say. And you can find it online at DeCabbit.com. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, everywhere. And I love what I do, digital marketing. I'm kind of one of those M people, not a T person. So I do a lot of SEO, but I do a lot of social media. I do a lot of PPC. I wrote a thesis on social media back in the 90s, early 90s, back before it was sexy and cool. So I've got a lot of deep experience across it, and I bring it to all the clients I work with.
So it's all your fault, the social media stuff.
Yeah, basically.
Mike, tell us about you.
Hey, I'm Mike King. I'm the founder and managing director of an agency called iPullRank based here in New York City. You can't Google me because I have one of the most common names in the world, but you can Google iPullRank. And yeah, I'm similar in that I'm an M-shaped marketer or whatever, deep knowledge in the development side, deep knowledge in, just digital acquisition in general, and then also deep knowledge in like the market research stuff as well. So, we work with a lot of enterprise brands of all size, well, not all size, I guess all kind. And
you've just written a book?
Oh, an ebook, not like an actual book.
An ebook, yeah. But but it's quite an important book for this particular session. So yeah, what's your book?
Yeah, so it's the Modern Enterprise SEO Guide or what have you. So I didn't really see anything out there that really spoke to what the process needs to look like today, and so I work with my team to generate a free ebook that you can download right now.
Excellent. We'll find out at the end, or put a link in the Q&A. Iman, tell us about yourself.
So first, it's Iman.
It's Iman.
So yeah.
I've only been saying that for like what, 6 years,
Yes, man, it's like that. So I've been in the SEO field for like quite a while. It's been a while, like let's say it's 13 years, not like you guys. So I was a web developer, knowing exactly how to develop that pages, understanding the structure of that kind of thing helped me to move forward with my career into SEOs. So as a mother, of course, I have to work in-house most of the time, or small SMBs or SMEs. So small, medium-sized businesses, but it's really awesome to work with these things. Understanding these technicalities helped me to move forward with my career. Of course, agencies, it's not my field because it's really a lot of diverse of projects and I can't keep up with my kids and work, of course. That's why I didn't move into it. But agencies, enterprises and small businesses is really quite enough for me.
And what's your associationship with in Yahoo?
So, so association with Yahoo is really both. It's like, enterprises and small, medium-sized business. So it's not just only like that. So it never reaches the small businesses, but it's just like, small, medium now, but it's based on enterprises. So that's how it is.
So I mean, I think the three of you really epitomize that, the understanding what happens when you're trying to do enterprise kind of politics, SEO processes, and small business SEO processes and stuff. So I'm pretty hopeful that we're going to get some interesting juxtapositions or opposites or points of view here. But I'll start off with question number one before I jump into some of the questions from some of the registrants. But if you guys want to ask questions in the audience, I think I've got the Q&A system working. Maybe someone can put a question mark in the Q&A, and I'll make sure that it's working. Would be great. If you do ask some questions, I'll try and get those out to the guys here. Oh, I see a little question mark. So thank you very much, whoever did that. That's perfect. It wasn't putting the question where I thought it was, so it's a good thing I asked that. Obviously, this is a Majestic sponsored webinar. It's not about Majestic in any way, but Majestic have got a new product out called Majestic Monitor. If you guys haven't tried it, it's at a completely different URL at majesticmonitor.com. And it's using some of the backbone of Majestic to use a different way to find influencers, and I think it's a pretty interesting looking tool. I hope you'll give it a try. I hope you play with it, and that's the advert for Majestic sort of out the way, and we'll carry on moving on. So we'll come back to Majestic later, I'm sure. Guys, I want to start with the obvious question. What is the one thing that you think is fundamentally different between an enterprise approach to SEO and a small business approach to SEO? And I'll start with Iman, if I pronounce that better this time.
Yeah, still. So anyhow, enterprises SEO is versus the small, medium sizes or small businesses. It's really one thing or two things exactly. It's justifications and flexibility in the process. That's mainly the thing between them. SEO campaign, no matter what the business is it's the same processes, but unfortunately it is justifications and flexibility. Till now, I just have a huddle between them. So to process that kind of thing. But it is really a challenge. It's a beautiful thing, but it's in order to test and see that SEO campaign achievement, it varies between two things. Between these two businesses.
Okay, I'll come back to that in a bit. I just want to try and get the first things out, and I'll come back with it. Sorry, Mike?
I think in a word, it's scalability. Whether that's scalability across the organization or scalability in whatever you're implementing. You can't just be like, oh yeah, let's do something that works for 3 pages when you're talking about enterprise. You got to figure out how can we roll this out either site-wide or across multiple lines of business.
Okay, so and Judith?
I think that one of the things that I do is work across micro businesses as well as SMEs and enterprise. And the big difference, as Mike already said, is scalability for enterprise, but also as Iman, did I say it right?
Iman.
Iman?
Iman.
Sorry.
That's what I said. That's what I said the first time round.
Yeah, because I thought he said imam. And I was like, an imam is a thing.
Okay.
Iman with the N.
Yeah, I'll just say Iman with an N. It just comes out with
I'm gonna let all y'all mess it up, and then I'm gonna.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mike.
It's a good thing no one's watching, really, isn't it? As
as the lovely youthful woman who has joined me on the panel.
Let me just turn down the red hue on my contact screen here.
We also, you have to think about the politics of any organization, and I think SMEs and enterprise are the same on politics. The one thing that I find is the biggest difference is in an enterprise client, I will be asked to achieve KPIs I think are the stupidest things that I've ever encountered in my entire life as far as KPIs. but it's important for the client because that's what they're going to be bonused on. And I'm like, but this is useless for your SEO. And he's like, but this is what I'm going to get my bonus for achieving. And I'm like, right, if we've got to do it, we got to do it. But SMEs are more bottom line oriented. So clients that are smaller, they really have to link those SEO optimization techniques to a bottom line improvement. Whereas I think not always with enterprise, but I've experienced it more often than not with enterprise, or they'll pay me to give them advice and then not do it, then pay me to tell them why they've lost traffic.
I'll come back to those 3 ideas, well, actually 4 ideas in a little bit, and try and drill into them a little bit more, because they're the ones that you started with before I jumped into other questions and stuff. But Monty's asked us a good question, I think, to get into the talk proper. Because pretty much we all started with we started with an SME kind of mindset, because we kind of learnt our own SEO before, we all started before SEO was a thing at an enterprise level. That kind of came on later. So Monty's question is, what's the single learning that you've carried over from SME to SEO or SME, or SMB or SME to big enterprise, or from the other way around if you were only in big enterprise start. So what carries on through from a small business mentality to a large business mentality? Mike, do you want to go first on this one?
Yeah, I think that working with a smaller business, you're like learning how to do more with less. And then you also have to learn how to like niche down so you can be effective competing with a lot of these like bigger, more entrenched brands. So to that end, you really end up looking at the nuances of things in a different way. And then once you get to the point of working with large enterprise and you apply those same concepts, they just work even easier. So as an example, let's say we're talking about, a link building tactic. One of the ones that we use a lot is comparing a list of your followers on like Twitter versus the linking root domains in your backlink profile. So, when you've got like only a couple thousand followers, like that's a cool little tactic to probably get you, maybe 100 links. But when you're talking about a brand that has 1 million followers, well, then that becomes a much bigger opportunity. So yeah, being creative and then being able to scale those creative ideas up.
So does that mean then that we're, as SEOs, we become ridiculously efficient money-wise for enterprise, at an enterprise level with that kind of thing? I mean, we're just cheap then, surely.
I mean, we're already inherently cheap. Like, think about what is paid for paid search versus what is paid for organic search. Like, we are probably one of the cheapest channels. Period.
Hey, man, you want to jump in?
Yes, we are definitely the cheapest, and even though they don't understand what do we do, for enterprises, really the challenge is you have to every time explain exactly what do you do for PMM or for PMs or stakeholders, which is really a waste of time, what I see, because they want to estimate the work by dollar, that's it, and revenue wise. And unfortunately, to move forward and make them understand the technicalities, the backlinking and the referrals by dollar, it's not always right for SEO.
Do you think that's the same when it's, you're justifying putting a banner in an airport, for example? Do they not have to do the same kind of justification for each one of those banners, or is that totally not the same?
They do, but unfortunately it's not the same. But it's SEO, because they think it is granted relationship for them to get it. Eventually that Google will have them there, but that's what I learned from Bill Hunt one time. There's a way, there's a highway also.
As long as they don't block the bot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Judith, one single thing in either direction.
I think the biggest thing that I've taken away from my time between SMEs and enterprises, I once did a calculation of the cost per click on SEO versus PPC. And that is the one way that you can win people over, is to demonstrate that if we look at 5 years worth of time and look at the cost per click on an SEO versus a PPC campaign, that you can instantly win any C-suite or anyone anywhere by just doing that calculation, or even over a year. the amount of money you spend on an SEO versus the amount of money you spend per click on PPC, you can easily demonstrate that SEO is a more cost-efficient channel. So that's the thing that I've taken away is some of the data analysis that I've done for larger companies. You can actually easily then spin up the algorithms for smaller companies and demonstrate the value you're bringing.
But can't that all, to Iman's point, can't that also be argued that to the enterprise people in Iman's world saying yes, but we should have got the organic traffic anyway, whether we've got an SEO or not. So is that not a pushback when you present that data, or you just it's never been a pushback for you?
My cheat is I use SEO Monitor that breaks out the brand versus non-brand for me, so I don't have to do any of that. And I can demonstrate their non-branded traffic that they would not have gotten had they not actually optimized somehow for the content that they had. So if they had put it all behind a password protected firewall and hidden it from the world, we can show the difference between the two using that tool. Plus, yeah, sure, you can try, but I've actually done, weirdly, data analysis on the number of people driven by organic search or directly to a website based on the underground ads that they placed over Christmas. Nice. And we were able to demonstrate that the underground ads were less efficient than the link building campaign that we did pound for pound. So tube advertising versus our outreach campaign. Our outreach campaign was more cost effective.
And I think if you get people to put in weird URLs, I want one of those, from the underground.com as their tracking URL, then you can do that fairly effectively, can't you? It's, yeah. Okay. So SEO, mega efficient in an enterprise organization, probably not in everything in SEO, but you can get a lot more bang for your buck. Is the main thing. You learn it right in a small business and then take that into a business, if you can get it into a big business. But that comes on to our second question, which is Matt, Matt, I just won't pronounce your surname. No, I'll try. Karamenico. Matt says,
You're bad with names, Dixon.
Yeah, I'm terrible with names, faces, and yeah. You should try me speaking in a different language. It's terrible. Any tips on bringing the organization along for the ride? So I think this plays to particularly Iman's point at the start, and I think everyone had that thing that justification you talked about at the start, and politics you mentioned, Judith. Okay, so it's harder to push anything through at an enterprise level. So the question is,
it's all education. Like you've got to educate at multiple levels. You got to educate with respect to what people care about at those different levels. One of the things that I always try to impress upon my team when we're creating deliverables is that you got to think about the deliverable that you're making as though it's going to somebody in the organization that you've never even spoke to. You don't know what they do. This document's going to come across their desk. So if you're like, hey, you need to fix your canonical tags, and you don't explain what the importance of that is or what the context is, you're never going to get anything through. So it's all about education. It's all about, meeting the right stakeholders and understanding like the workflows and governance models within the organization. Otherwise, nothing is ever going to happen.
That's interesting. Anyone else want to jump in on that?
Yeah, so it's just like, education, the whole organization about it, but it's like, it's different from different kind of businesses holding. But it's like, the objective of SEO is really a long-term thing, and keep educating that stakeholder or like the businesses all the time, even though they're not interested in it, but they want to hear about it. But it's like that kind of documented, I believe they don't go through it. So the moving with that kind of process is going so slower from what I have been seeing, that behavior. And I have been seeing that small businesses or SMEs are more agile without educating them. Moving forward and trustworthy. That's why they're looking forward for SEOs to help them, even though for short terms, it's not just a huge terms like enterprises. But unfortunately, it's more agile than enterprises to move forward. And the campaign of SEO, it's really much easier to replicate in their websites.
Is it that a small business is more agile, or that you only
More
need
agile.
to tell one person and that person either gets it or doesn't get it?
Yes.
Whereas in a large organization, you've got to get 10 people to get it at least, before it goes anywhere. So it may be that the agility is based on one individual in a small business, which can't transpose over to a large organization.
Yeah, but it can certainly be incredibly frustrating. We'll have something like a recommendation like, hey, make additional subdirectories in Google Search Console, something that I could physically just do, right? Like I have the access to do, but I still got to talk to 10 people before I can press the button. So that can definitely be frustrating.
It is.
Yeah, there's a lot of structures in enterprise SEO, I think, that seem to be made to stymie us, that really can trip people up. And each time you step up the ladder, it gets more and more difficult. But it can be similar with SMEs. I have two CEOs I deal with. One literally physically grabbed me, like my arm dragged me to a meeting, and was quite forceful about wanting to use my services. Absolutely. And another CEO where I happened to meet him at an event. He was incredibly dismissive of SEOs and what we did. He said that we were useless, pointless, we were expensive, and we got no results. And so I dug in a little bit. Turned out he had a really bad experience with that in PRs. I talked to him over a number of months, about a year, and after a year, he let me show him what SEOs actually do. And he's still a client now 2 years later. But it's not just enterprise where you can get tripped up. It's also small business.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's people.
It's interesting. There's, on a slightly aside, there's a really interesting article on intercom.com, which they call the day zero, which they're really talking about software as a service as a technology, and saying that, if you've got something like Salesforce, or you've got something like Google Analytics, or you've got a software as a service, you can get somebody through the door, but they're not going to engage until they've got the integration, the means to integrate it. So you can say, right, you've got you can't do anything, you can't change anything until you've got the means to make that actually happen all the way through. And I think just little things like CMS systems for the old one, and before WordPress, SEO was, really, really hard because you couldn't do any kind of change. Now, I guess enterprise systems, that's still very, very hard because you can't get into the CMS most of the time. But where you can, at least you can write content, for example. And so Intercom sort of has this concept that you don't start measuring success of engagement until you've got the ability for the client to actually implement the ideas that of the product. And I think it's an interesting idea because an enterprise level customer basically shouldn't start expecting success until the ground rules of permissions and a workflow is allowed that will allow something to actually happen. And it may not be the best thing that you want, but at least you can do something.
Yeah, I mean, that really just comes down to prioritization. And again, to Iman's point, that is one of the things that you have to work with the team, to develop. I mean, this is true in all types of organizations, but they kind of force you to do it in the enterprise organizations. And the information that you collect about what they can actually do is what helps you, force prioritize the things that you want them to do.
All right. And communicating that prioritization is sorry, Iman, you want to go on?
No.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
Okay. So Adamola comes in here and asks, is it wise to give away the farm, so to speak, through content on your blog and other platforms, if and when you're hired? What's left to deliver? So Adamola has the question, do you want to give away all your secrets before you engage your client? What are your thoughts on that?
I have a really good saying in my head all the time in my life. I used to be really reluctant to give things away on stage. I used to not want to tell people everything that I did on stage because I was worried, what value could I bring to a client if I've just given away everything that I do? And the thing I learned is, especially after speaking at the same conference year after year, people don't even do the simple things I tell them to, like implement Google Search Console, people. I went to a conference, told the audience to do that. Guy comes up to me next year and he said, you know, one thing you told us, if we do one thing after your talk, do this. I haven't done it yet, but I will after this year. I'm like, 366 days later, dude, seriously, one thing, and you couldn't do that. And this is the thing. You can put it on your blog. You can say it on stage. They're not going to do it. 99% of them won't. The 1% that do are the innovators and the people who will challenge you in the future for clients. Great. Fabulous. Please do it. I'm over 50 now, and I'm tired and old, and I just want to retire soon. And so do it. Just do it. But people won't. So to the person looking at this issue of, you know, do we give away the farm? Give away the farm. Don't give them exact data, but do it. Just do it. They won't do anything with it. They'll be like, wow, smart person. We should hire that person.
Yep. And I echo that 100%, maybe even more, because I have given away the data. I have given away the actual code, and people still don't do it. So you ain't got to worry about that at all. Just put it all out there.
Give it to me.
Go on. So I think it's people don't want to do it, and the truth of the matter is, knowing what to do and doing it are two entirely different exercises. You know, we all know that we should get up in the morning, do a 5-mile run before breakfast, and make sure that we don't eat any meat, alcohol, you know, all these things, not good stuff. We know this, but we don't do them. And it's and with SEO, it's you could fix that plumbing thing if you really tried, but you could call in a plumber as well, surely. So I agree. Yeah, you can't possibly give away too much information, I wouldn't have thought. On the other side of that, I think there is a fear of giving out information and then it getting eaten up by, you know, another SEO slamming it down, and there's a personal kind of, you feel personally affronted by something that you've put up in good faith, and then somebody criticizes it and stuff. And I think that's just a case of maturity and trying to get to a point where you're putting something up in a non-confrontational way, and then it can be criticized in a non-confrontational way, and you're criticizing the idea, not the person behind it.
Yeah, I think people take it too seriously. Sorry, Mike, go ahead.
No. I mean, you know, your biggest concern should be, is Neil Patel going to steal it and put his name on it?
Yeah, I've seen the Twitter wars and the fights where people have taken what somebody else has written, which was factually incorrect, and then really slammed at them about it, because sometimes we all have bad days and we might react to something in a particular way because incorrect information is being sent out there. But I'm the one that gets, or other people are the ones that get hired to fix it. So I've seen misimplemented hreflang. I've seen badly implemented JSON LD. I've seen all sorts of badly implemented code all over the place that I've had to be hired to fix. So even when we give away the farm, people are still screwing it up. And when people do put stuff out there and it gets attacked, don't take it personally. I've worked in the gambling industry. I've worked in porn. I've worked at not in front of the camera, other side, marketing. And I've worked in pharmaceuticals. And if you don't have a thick skin after that, and I stood on stage, 11, 12 years ago when I was the only woman. And if you don't have a thick skin, you're not going to be able to put yourself out there and take it. So maybe little steps, maybe start with Twitter, the bear pit, and then post on a blog.
Okay. Anyone else? Iman, do you want to jump in with anything, or shall I go on to Q&A for a question from Christopher?
Go ahead.
Okay, so Christopher, okay, guys, anybody that signed up in the last 48 hours, which is quite a lot of people because the newsletter went out 48 hours ago, I may not have written down the questions in advance, so you might want to put them into the system. So Christopher, I asked this in the Q&A portion of the sign up. Well, I'm glad you put it up here because I didn't see it, Christopher. You wanted to ask what type of strategies are best for large-scale SEO projects where a company serves multiple, it's quite a common question actually, where a company serves multiple USA states with multiple cities for multiple services. For example, a national home service company serves 45 states and in 1,000 cities. How would you create a URL structure, domain service plus city? Would you curate your URL structure with domain/service plus city, or domain/service/city, or maybe some sort of silo structure? Thank you all. Who wants to go with that one?
I can take it because I've worked on a lot of sites like this. So, you know, it basically goes one way or the other. Like some people will do it like your first option where it's like, here's the domain and the service, and there's a series of service pages that are based on city, state, even going down to like zip codes or townships or what have you. Or it's the other way where it's just like city, state, and then the services are under there. I personally think it's more easy to manage when it's the first way, because you have the opportunity to get that specificity, but you also don't have to worry about like a ton of duplication. The biggest thing to know is that you've got to leverage the people, like the services, the people in the service area, to get you the content that's going to be different enough. Otherwise, you're going to have a large duplicate content issue. But either way, these are both like both of these taxonomies are effectively silo structures. It's just which one does your organization support with the content that they have.
Iman, any thoughts?
So I think it's like, you know, I agree with Mike with that kind of thing. But as I mentioned, having dedicated URLs for each one, that kind of aiming of his, like, you know, purposes of that kind of be like, you know, for ranking or things, make it, his URL structures have to be clean and make sure that he submitted. And of course, I don't know what he was trying to do with that kind of URL. If he wants to crawl it very easy, or want to implement it for the customers, like, you know, to reach out, or the Google bot to reach it out very easily, he have to be like, you know, considering that kind of URL structure to make it very reachable, not keep deep crawling for that kind of thing. That's what I think he have to think about that thing.
Judith, you want to add anything in there?
I think the approach that I take, which is a little bit different, is the customer. What is the way that the customer would best be served? Would it be a city, state, and then list of services, or would it be a list of services and then a list of the services by city, state? So whichever way it goes, what's the best for the customer? Are they going to take a lot of services by city, or are they going to look for something specific, one service in one area of one city? So like tire repair or replace, or is it a furniture shop? Or
I thought I was going to go similar to that idea, but I was thinking thinking about it from the organizational structure. So if you're a sort of a credit company that sells insurance and loans and credit cards and stuff, then you've probably got expertise in mortgages and loans and credit cards. So maybe then you should use that and then go by the states afterwards, because your organizational expertise, the people that know about credit cards, we need to know all their own content and curate and own their content underneath that side of it. Whereas if things are like a delivery company, and you've got a UPS and you've got places all around them, and they've got UPS depots then it's more of a, well, we need to know our customers locally, and so we therefore should have it the other way around. I don't think it matters for Google, but what I do think is a more common problem in that is duplicate content. That's more likely the issue. When you start trying to scale that, duplicate content can become an issue, because you've actually got exactly the same content with insert city here, and without some variety in there, that can cause some problems. And also I think the other thing is internally linking concepts together within those across those silos can be very helpful, particularly topics and ideas. If you've got a page, if you've got plumbing and electricity and utilities at a city level, then maybe you also need to have the best national programs for electricity page that all the systems need to link to, I think.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
duplicate content is a problem, I guess, for big organizations, is it? Sorry.
Were you asking me?
Well, I was just generally throwing it out there, but then I realized I was interrupting Judith. So Judith, you can come back on that.
I was just thinking, if it's like you said plumbing and electricity. If it's stuff for your home, then if you went by vertical and just went electrician and then went city state, that's one way you could do it. But what if I don't just need an electrician in my area? What if I also need a plumber and I also need a paver and a roofer? Then I want all of that available at a city basis. So it would be good to group the specialisms at a city basis. But you could also have the top level stuff of, you know, why is it important to maintain your guttering? We call it here in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
You know, why is it important to clear your ivy from the side of your house? And that can be your top level. And then are you looking for a guttering specialist, and then drop down to the city? And then you could have on the city, you could still have all the services together, but have that city as the landing page for all the different services in one place. But you could have your expertise articles at a non-geolocated section of the site.
Hey Judith, off topic, how come you don't do any like those Madonna things? Like, why don't you say straight away or anything? Because you lived out there for mad long, right?
Yeah, well, I've been here since '96, so yeah, totally.
When you say out here, you know, we are here, you know, we've invited you into our homes. You know.
Well, you know, my parents are still in Canada. My little sister and brother are still in Canada, so I'm kind of just here, and home is still there, and home is here. So it's a weird juxtaposition. I do sometimes call it a boot. And I'm not talking about something. I'm talking about the trunk of a car. But then I'll call a lorry, which is a truck. I'll call it a truck to my husband, who then has to mentally convert from truck to lorry.
Yeah, I'm just going to draw us back on topic, guys, if that's okay. You know, so I want to go back to your first questions, your first answers, guys. And just to remind you of your answers. The four words that came up in problems for enterprise SEOs are, or the major differences are, justification, getting that justification through, flexibility within the organizations, scalability as a positive and a negative issue, and politics. So and some bad KPIs. So that's 5 things. When I say 4 things, that's 5 things. Out of those, which of those sounds like the most toxic problem? Politics, being given the wrong KPIs, scalability, flexibility, justification. What's the most toxic out of those? Or can it be any one of those? And on the other side, what's the big win? We've already talked about scalability though as a big win. So what's toxic?
So I think politics has the most potential to be toxic because it's like the interpersonal relationship stuff. But I also think the KPIs can be toxic as well because it sends people in the wrong directions. You know, if to Judith's earlier point, if they're like, oh, well, we just got to get, you know, rankings. Well, rankings doesn't necessarily mean you're going to drive changes to the bottom line. So I think it's either one of those two.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Agree with that, guys?
I agree about numbers, yes, because, you know, numbers for SMEs or SMBs, just only, you know, they want to see the KPIs, but the organization as enterprises, they want to see the OKRs over the KPIs. So that's important for them. So I totally see that more important than that kind of politics for them.
Yeah, I think the political side of things definitely can be the most toxic because it's people, and it's people undermining other people. So even if you've been given the right KPIs, you can still be undermined by politics. Even if you achieve everything, even if you knock it out of the park, you can still be undermined by politics because it's a people thing.
And is that easier or harder if you're an external agency looking in, or whether you're an internal person? Is it harder for the internal SEO, or is it harder for the agency? I suppose emotionally it's harder for the internal SEO, but again, not necessarily.
I think it can go either way.
Yes.
You know, my experience, because I've been on both sides, and I'm sure a lot of us have, you know, the thing about the politics when you're in-house is that those politics are ever present. Whereas when you're an agency, it's like when you're dealing with that client specifically, but those politics can hinder your own success on either side. So I think it's both.
Okay.
Yeah, totally agree with that, because it's really, it's not, it's really can't achieve anything faster in both ways. So it's really into going through these processes, and you have to be like, you know, implementing that and deploying that by taking time. So
yeah, as an external consultant, I'm used to saying to clients at times in large enterprise situations, you know, if you need to, blame me, because I'm the external agency, I'm the external consultant who's come in, and you're the person who has to keep your job. So I'm just brought in by the outside. I'm an outside consultant. I'm brought into the client's environment, but the people who are in-house, it's their full-time job, and you'll be thrown under a bus sometimes, not for anything that you've done, but because the internal team needs to, because otherwise somebody internally is going to lose their job, and it could be just crazy politics. So, yeah.
So you're saying when you screwed it up, it wasn't really you, Judith?
Yeah, I wish it was. I have screwed up things in my life, and I do own up to the penalties I've caused. But
okay, we got about 5 minutes left, so I just wanted to have a final question, really. We're in a new normal. I think it's fair to say we're in a new normal. However you define that, whether it's COVID, whether it's Black Lives Matter. Hopefully things are moving. Well, hopefully they're relaxing on COVID. Maybe not in America, but in other parts in Europe. And Black Lives Matter has definitely gone over the whole world. But everybody wants. We now need to try and look at some of the systemic biases in the system. And I know, as I say, Judith, there were times when you were the only female presenter in the whole of the conference. Mike, you've been the only black guy at a conference, and Iman, you've been the only person wearing a scarf at conferences, and I've met you all in those situations over the years. So our industry ain't so good. I don't know if you've seen those circle things that are going around Twitter of what your influences are and stuff, of who influences you. Well, you go back and have a look at all the SEO ones in there, and I was very embarrassed. I couldn't put mine up. I thought, that's just not right. I can't find anybody with, there's a lack of diversity in here. So my question is, whether it's COVID, or whether it's diversity, how can businesses try to remove systemic diversity bias within our systems? And I'm going to leave that as the last question for the day. I don't know who's prepared to jump in first.
You got to be proactive. You got to be proactive about it. I mean, just like anything else, if you want to achieve it, you got to be like, okay, let's take a plan. Let's come up with a plan and let's do it. It's not enough to be like, oh, we're not attracting people because they're not applying. Well, they're not applying because of a lot of things that you're not doing. So like figure out what those things are and do it. For me, when I started getting involved in SEO and like thought leadership and stuff, it was seeing Will Reynolds speak to make me think like, yo, I can do this too. And, while he was on stage, I pitched for a conference and I got it, and it just like kind of went from there. So, it's one thing that you've got to position more of these people to be visible so that it encourages other people, but you also have to proactively look for these people as well and, include them in what you're trying to do.
So I can totally agree with you, Mike. I'm a woman who's working with engineers, who's mainly are men, men's all the time. So they are degraded in the female aspects over there. But, I can highlight things from my work aspects and in charge, being in charge and that kind of thing, not to be like the bossing them around or something or like that. But I achieve my things by by my work and actions. I try to be to their own level, but I can't because I'm a female. So most of the time I was integrated also with that kind of male thing. But moving them or moving these engineers around is really not easy, but hopefully it will open a mind of their and accept us as a woman, that we can make a change or and make them understand that we can help them, not bossy them all the time.
One of
Judith,
the
a Native American.
I think, well, there aren't many Native Americans in the UK, and we get so little sunlight, we go kind of pasty, so you can't tell. But it's a struggle. The struggle is real. I think one of the things that I used to do with Girl Geek dinners is rewrite or help companies rewrite their job adverts, because the inherent bias in the job advert itself excluded women and appealed to men. And that was something that companies didn't realize they were doing, was excluding 80% of women from the job advert before they even got CVs. So you have to be thinking beyond just what you're doing in your company, and also the external image that you're giving forth. So what are your job adverts saying? Are you making sure that you're actually diverse in the approach you're taking towards staff? We had a problem where we were doing parties and we had a summer party during a fasting, a time of fasting. And there was one member of staff who it particularly hit hard. And no one cared except me. And that's wrong. And this is what we're trying to change. You have to think outside of your own head. Don't have a summer party when 90% of your staff might be able to go, but the 10% that can't go suddenly feel like other. So it's thinking outside of your block. Like N=1 is the biggest fallacy in our industry, in every industry. So just think about that.
Great point. I think, and all credit to, although I don't work at Majestic day by day now, I know that they've made a very big effort to rewrite their job description adverts to be inclusive that way, because things didn't quite pan out, and it was very difficult to see. If you weren't looking for your bias, you weren't going to see your own bias, and that happened to me just today. This morning I was in a sort of a business self-help kind of group that I'm in, and one of the questions that came up was, well, I want to recruit, and before lockdown, I used to recruit from friends of friends, and I said, well, this is where your problem starts, really. I understand that you want cultural fit in terms of the culture of the organization, but if you're going to start with, I'm going to recruit from friends of friends because they got a recommendation, then you're not, you're firstly excluding a huge pool of people, and secondly, you're not getting the diversity of ideas and abilities in the system. So I think it's actually turned into a very bad idea of employing your friend of a friend. Recommending somebody is great, and you want to do that if your friend's just lost their job. But if you're not going to recruit on a level playing field, then you've probably closed the door to improving diversity right at the start, I think. So
we're trying to do that in the search awards. So every time I put people forward as judges for the various different search awards, I always make sure to think about who it is that I'm putting forward, how I know them, and how they're adding to the diversity of the judging panel, so that it's not just always the same people that we all know and we all get together at conferences and we all drink together. We need other people coming in with other ideas.
Sure, for sure. Okay, guys, so we've got to the end of our time, and once again, it's been lively and fun, and I hope that the audience have got some good ideas and thoughts out of it. Before we go, if you want to tell people if they want to get in contact with you, how they might do that, and just how you download your ebook and that kind of thing. So, Iman, how do people get in?
Reach out. Yeah, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. It's like Iman, Iman, then a man next to me. That's how it is. And you can find me in LinkedIn because I'm so connected to a lot of people. So it's very easy to find me.
Very good. Mike?
Just Google iPullRank, iPullRank.com. I'm iPullRank on Twitter, Mike at iPullRank.com. And also I dropped the link for the ebook in the chat as well.
Okay, fantastic. Got it in there. That's good. And I'll try and persuade the guys to put it up somewhere on the when they put the recording up. Can't guarantee that. Might be called a peg link, so I might get into trouble for that one. Okay, and Judith.
You can get a hold of me on Twitter, on Instagram. on Facebook, on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is probably the easiest. Judith Lewis is my LinkedIn URL. So I got in there early. And yeah, I'm all over the place. I'm always open to answering questions from people. If you need help of any sort, I have been across almost every industry. So I can usually bring some experience. So yeah, connect. LinkedIn me, follow me on Twitter, criticize my chocolate choices.
I'll tell you what I'll do. I'm going to read out this this URL on the thing, so it's in the video anyway. landing.iPullRank.com/modern-SEO-guide, and there it is. So guys, thank you very much. If you haven't tried Majestic Monitor, it's majesticmonitor.com. Plug for Majestic, obviously. Thank you to Majestic for helping me get this on again, a big thank you to you guys for coming on. I really appreciate it. I appreciate it takes time and energy and coordination, and your time is really appreciated by us and the guys at Majestic. So thanks very much for your time. And when it cut it off, it's all going to cut off because that's what Zoom does. I'll email you afterwards to say thanks as well.
Thank you.
Cheers, guys.
Later.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye.